Hey everyone, Amia here from Resonance Astrology. Welcome to my channel. Today we are back with the weekly overview for the astrology of the week ahead from Monday, June 9th till June 15th, 2025. And I sincerely apologize for doing this one day later. I was away for the weekend. We, at least here in this canton that I'm in Zurich, Switzerland, it's like Christian based mostly. So everybody has days off when it's Pentecost. So I was away with my mother for the weekend. We were in Germany, not too far away from here in Schwarzwald, which literally translates to Black Forest. It was a very nice and relaxing time, and I sincerely feel replenished. And also yesterday, when Mercury and Jupiter moved into the sign of Cancer, we spent the days at the biggest waterfalls in Germany. I must say I was not that impressed, just because I've been to the Plitvice National Park in Croatia many times, which for me are like one of the most beautiful waterfalls. So yeah, but regardless, I think it's just nice spending time around water now that Jupiter has moved into Cancer, and really getting in touch with that element, because one of the best ways that I always get to know the signs or the planets is by simply just like sitting down with nature and observing them, sitting down with the natural forces. And Cancer is a water sign, so just sitting down with water, extremely just nourishing, replenishing, and gets you to see the lens of Cancer in a different way, because then you observe the quality of water. You observe how water moves, what it does. And I feel like this then gives you a deeper insight into, just the water element in general, but all the water signs in and of itself. So something I highly recommend during this time. Especially even here in the Northern Hemisphere, our summer season is just about to start. Not yet, but we are closing in, or I'm not sure if that's how you say, not closing in, but just moving towards the summer solstice. So soon enough, summer season is about to start. Cancer season is about to start. There's going to be loads of Cancer energy up in the air, and I do really feel like it's like a moment we've all been waiting for, especially for that long Mars retrograde period in the sign of Cancer, which was definitely a much harsher period. Mars is in fall in the sign of Cancer, but now we get Jupiter exalted in the sign of Cancer. And I have been saying this, half a year prior, that I sincerely feel like that Jupiter that moves into Cancer after that Mars retrograde period feels like a band-aid, like a much needed healing, maybe not even a band-aid, but like a healing salve that actually like heals the wound, doesn't just like cover the wound, but actually heals the wound. And I feel like this is really the opportunity we are getting. I'm so curious how you guys are feeling, because for me, I really collectively feel that, and I'm sure it's because all of this is squaring Saturn and Neptune in Aries, but it really feels like collectively we are coming together much more as humanity. Everything feels a lot more humanitarian, and hopefully, I'm having my fingers crossed here, things can move in a better humanitarian direction for us all, because I do believe in a way, we are all connected to one another. And I don't mean it in this like spiritual woo-woo way. I just mean it in like collectively. There is like a thing of like being together in this thing called life. And Cancer is the waters of life, the fertile waters of life. I'm not going to talk too much about Jupiter in Cancer in this video, just because I did the Jupiter in Cancer horoscopes just recently. They're uploaded and you can check them out if you haven't already. But I do assume that most people that watch the weekly overviews are probably the people that watch most of my videos. Like you're the you're the cool guys. So, you know, I talk much more about Jupiter and Cancer there. So yeah, and even for this, the preparation for this video, maybe you guys know or maybe you don't know, but before I did this channel, with a former colleague, friend of mine, we both did our first like collaborative projects to, you know, just be in the astrology world and establish ourselves a bit better, and just like also for our own self-growth. And so we created a YouTube channel called Solar Astrology Podcast, and we went through all the 12 zodiac signs. And sometimes I still re-listen to that, first of all, to see how much I've grown, but also I'm like, I was re-listening to the Cancer episode we did there, which is like 2 years ago, and just listening to what we were sharing there, because I feel like there's often, like just to remind myself of like what I was thinking. Like I don't want to put myself on a high pedestal or anything like that, of like, oh yeah, I said so many good things. But sometimes I do generally like reread my notes I wrote, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm like, oh damn, like this is still good, like this needs to be put out there. Because for a long time I was struggling so hard with expressing myself and putting myself out there, and it's really just recently that this has been less and less of an issue. And yeah, obviously I'm using this channel to improve my speech, the way that I talk to people, the way that I talk to the camera. It has gotten so much better. And something interesting I just noticed before is I was thinking, okay, what was going on the last time that Jupiter was in Cancer? And you can do this exercise as well. So Jupiter, the last time Jupiter was in Cancer was late June 2013 till around mid-July 2014. So Jupiter spends around a year in a sign. And I was looking back at the time and I'm like, holy moly, like that's when I was in that 10th school year, which is like an extra school year here in Switzerland. I signed up for psychology. There were too many people that signed up for the psychology class. So they made a separate class, which they put a few people into. I didn't choose that. I got picked for whatever reason. And they made an astrological psychology class. And it was taught by the school director or principal. So I truly believe it was fate that I was put in that class at that time to connect myself to astrology. And I didn't even realize how unconventional this was, because I grew up already more spiritually inclined, with already more spiritually inclined family and practices that were already making me weird and stand out since forever. So astrology was nothing like crazy to me. My mom also did like child horoscopes for me and my brother when we were born from what was it, Astro Data. Like I'm looking at my first generated birth chart right here. It's not even in whole sign houses, but whatever. But so I knew of the existence of astrology for a long time, and it was nothing that was ever frowned upon in my family. Even like looking back at my lineage, my great grandmother was, as far as I know, as far as my grandmother told me, like she, how do you say that? She read the coffee stains. I'm not sure what the exact name is of that. So my family was always already a bit like spiritually inclined, and so for me at that time, getting put in an astrology class wasn't this like weird thing. But looking back now, I'm like, this is so unconventional. Like this does not just happen. Like you do not just study astrology in the school system. So I truly believe it was fate that back then that I was put in this class. Again, it was when Jupiter was in Cancer. It was in Cancer in my 9th house. So, you know, the higher education or just education in general. So this is like no coincidence that this is the time where I first started to learn about astrology in a more serious way. So first of all, congrats to me for essentially 12 years of astrology, one whole Jupiter return cycle of me studying and learning about astrology. Like it's been 12 years, what the hell? So these are some of the reflections that I've been having these past few days. Yeah. So again, since this review is a bit late, I'm doing it on Tuesday, not on Monday. I've already shared some reflections on Monday. We are diving right in. I also, just because I really want to get this out, because yesterday when I came back, I felt so bad, sincerely, to not be able to do this and upload this on the same day. So, at the same time, this is a bit more unscripted than usual. But it is more intuitive. It is more intuitive, which might also work since, Cancer is a sign of intuition. But this is essentially what happened yesterday. Okay, we had Mercury ingressing into the sign of Cancer. We had Jupiter ingressing into the sign of Cancer. Yay! And we are in a time now of both the benefic planets being in extremely fertile, great signs. Okay, Venus right now is in Taurus. Jupiter is in Cancer, as already mentioned 5 million times now. I just feel like it's such a positive upliftment right now in the air, and goodness that is like kind of in the back right now. I really like this. What we also had yesterday, though, is obviously everything that ingresses into Cancer right now. The first thing they do is meet Saturn and Neptune. Essentially every planet, because when the outers move, and Saturn is not an outer planet, but it is the slowest moving of the 7 inner planets. So it is a big deal. It changes everything. Because even for Neptune, all this time, Cancer didn't really, it related to Neptune in Pisces in a way of a trine. Now that Neptune is in Aries, everything that moves into Cancer is squaring Neptune. So we're experiencing something completely differently right now. This doesn't happen. We are restructuring our whole natal matrix and global matrix of how the signs and the planets are interacting and changing with one another. We're also getting a completely different understanding of how Aries and Cancer relate in our charts, because now they're forming these squares. I mean, they always form squares. I hope you're not getting me wrong here. What I'm trying to say is just that this whole relational way the planets do their thing, they do their aspects, this is their relationship, is drastically changing when the outers ingress into new signs, because everything that related to that sign in a specific way now does so in a different way. Does that make sense? Or even let's do another example, just so we have more examples. Aquarius and Cancer don't form any aspects together. Okay, they're in aversion to one another. They don't form a major aspect. Pluto was in Capricorn for the longest time, so every time planets ingress into the sign of Cancer, they eventually formed an opposition to Pluto. Now they don't. For the next 20 years, all the planets in Cancer are not forming any sort of aspect to Pluto. So for the first time, we are understanding, or maybe you've been on the planet way longer, but I'm just for the first time in a long time, we are understanding the Cancer parts of our charts in a different way because it's not opposing Pluto anymore. I hope this brings in a bit more clarity. I find that extremely, extremely fascinating, especially now with so much changes in the air and in the waters, I guess, up ahead. So this is very interesting. And when, the Cancerian planets meet Saturn and Neptune for the first time, this is a new light bulb moment. This is like a new neural pathway that gets formed inside of our brain, or the birth chart matrix, because none of us alive have experienced what it means. I mean, Saturn, yes, I agree, if you've been here long enough. But Neptune, none of us have experienced Neptune in Aries and what it means that Cancer is squaring Neptune in Aries. So this is a new feeling for all of us. A new neural pathway in our brains and in our birth chart that is getting formed, and how we are seeing the world. Which is also why I tell people, if you have certain transits from the outer planets going on in your lifetime, especially the like Neptune and Pluto, there's only certain few aspects they can make, because Neptune takes over 100 years and Pluto over 200 years to even get like a full cycle. So none of us alive will ever get a Neptune return or a Pluto return. So if Pluto and Neptune are forming certain aspects in your chart, this is like a once in a lifetime thing. This is a once in a lifetime thing. And this is like something you're meant to go through. Like maybe you have your moon in Aries at, I don't know, 1 degrees. If Neptune and Saturn are going over that moon, this is a once in a lifetime transit, and you're meant to be experiencing this. Like, just want to make that clear. But yeah, sorry. This is the only thing that happens when I'm unscripted. I can get a bit all over the place, so excuse me for that. I hope you're still getting enough valuable information out of this. And the point I really wanted to make with this is, right, okay, so because that happened yesterday, Mercury squared Saturn. Today, Mercury is squaring Neptune. So there might be okay, because Mercury in the realm of the moon is very intuitive. It wants to connect emotionally. It's about talking about feelings, feeling feelings, experiencing your senses through the body, through the feelings. Saturn and Neptune, like Mercury meeting Saturn and Neptune, is like, where have you felt restricted, like you cannot fully express yourself? Especially because what is also going on today actually is that Mars in Leo is trining Chiron in Aries. This is empowering. This transit, I feel like, is very extremely empowering, and being like, where have I not spoken my needs? Okay, because if we don't know what we need, right? Other people are not mind readers. Neither are we mind readers. So, like, put yourself in that position. If somebody isn't telling you what they need, can you always intuitively feel it? No, you can't. You can't always do that. So it's very much a transit about seeing, where have I come shortly? Where have I not communicated what my true feelings are, what my true needs are? And not being afraid of conflict, being like, I need to say something. Even if 3 months passed, okay? Because otherwise this is how resentment builds. And we don't want to get there. We don't want to get there. So if there has been any sort of wounds around expressing how you are truly feeling, what you actually need, especially when it comes to safety and you feeling like yourself or you not feeling like yourself, this is a time to communicate that. What we have also had yesterday, I don't want to talk about this too much because it kind of already happened, but I guess it's still up in the air. Okay, Venus in Taurus was squaring Pluto in Aquarius. This happened yesterday around the evening time, at least here in Europe. In America, it would be a bit sooner in the day. Venus square Pluto in Aquarius, for me, is always like let me tie it into all of this. Because I feel like what's up in the air right now on an intuitive level is just that we're in a relational way, okay? In which relationships have you not had your needs met? Pluto tends to make big things small and small things big. And this is usually how resentment gets built up, how these feelings get built up, right? You don't speak your needs, and then over time, people cannot meet your needs because they're not mind readers. You don't even know what you need. You start feeling confused. You start feeling like the other person like doesn't love you, doesn't hate you. Something small that could have been solved. Sorry, there's like a fly. Now hasn't been, and now it's building up over time, and now something small became something big. What do we do now? Is there a repair possible? Is it, is it necessary to bring things up? I would say it is, actually, with everything going on, with the full moon also building up. I think it is extremely important to bring things to the table, which is getting us into the full moon, which is happening this Wednesday. We have a full moon in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter just having moved into the sign of Cancer. On its way to form the final of the three Saturn Jupiter squares. This is important. So this is like the full moon is a culminating moment, and at the same time a new chapter that is starting in our lives on a global level, but also in our personal lives, because this Jupiter-Saturn square is going back to the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, which happened late 2020 at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So this is a story arc of that time. Now we are getting the square, which is like the opening point. It's like the first quarter moon. Eventually, in like 5 years, we're going to get the opposition. And then even later on, we're going to get the closing square, which is like the third quarter moon. The opposition is obviously like the full moon. And then eventually they're going to form a conjunction again. And this happens in 20 years. So every 5 years into this, we are getting a square or opposition or a square again. We already had the first 2 squares, which, again, I don't have notes. I didn't note down exactly when they happened, but they happened throughout last year. We had them in while Saturn and Jupiter were obviously still in Gemini and in Pisces. So completely different energy. The final square is now in Cancer and in Aries. So it's like a new chapter we're entering into. And actually, by around summer end this year, when Saturn moves back into Pisces, we're already heading into the triny aspect of Saturn and Jupiter. They're not going to form a full trine until next year when Jupiter will be in Leo and Saturn will be in Aries again. But we are slowly moving out of the square and into the trine, which is again a much more positive, uplifting transit. And I really love that. I really love that. This is again like we're moving between water and fire. So it has a lot to do with like fiercely initiating things, standing up for ourselves, but also coming from like an empowered emotional perspective. And I think this is so good for like some great personal themes of overcoming our difficulties and our hardships, because Saturn in Aries has so much to do with overcoming our so many of our shortcomings, essentially. Where was I not able to fully be myself? Which stems from so many things. But yeah, I'm like debating, should I get more into this or not? But yeah, this full moon on Wednesday is going to be a peak point for that. I'm very excited. I feel like something good is up in the air. I know there's a lot of instability coming because Uranus is moving into the sign of Gemini in less than a month. I can only reiterate what I said so many times before. We need grounding practices. And this time, right now, with Jupiter in Cancer and Venus in Taurus, is like the perfect time to establish bodily based practices of safety, of feeling safe in our body. What do I need in my environment? What do I need to feel okay in my community, to be out in this world, aka the world is my oyster. So ideally, in an ideal world, we would feel safe wherever we go. This is not the reality. So what can I do? How can I take back my power, Saturn and Aries, and create that safety within me? What can I do? How can I set boundaries? How can I, how can I create my life so it fits me on my own terms? Okay, planets in its fall are very good at creatively coming up with solutions to things they had shortcomings in. Because planets in its fall are coming from the bottom, okay? They're like, one metaphor that I always like to use when talking about planets in dignity is either hotels or recipes. But let's take the recipe example for today. So let's take Jupiter in its home sign of Sagittarius and Pisces. Okay, this is its domicile. So when a planet is in its domicile, it gets the recipe book. It knows how to cook the recipe. It's in its home, okay? It's in its home sign. It's in its domicile. So you know your cooking utensils. You know how how the microwave works. You know how you know your utensils. Let's not overcomplicate it here. Planets in exaltation, so Jupiter in Cancer, for example, is like handed down the cookbook from the master chef and gets like the best knife. And so it has like the best utensils to create the most delicious meal. Mind you, everybody still needs to cook the meal. This is very important for this metaphor. Just because you get the good supplies doesn't mean you can cook the meal good. But let me get back to this in 1 second. Planets in detriment, which for Jupiter would be either in the sign of Virgo or the sign of Gemini. So this is the opposing signs essentially from the domicile. So Jupiter in Virgo or Gemini is like, okay, the cookbook has a few scraps. Maybe you don't see the measurements like too clearly, so you don't know exactly what needs to go inside. The cooking utensils are kind of a bit whack, but you can still manage okay, you know? Like you don't have the best... how do you say this? I hate when I lose words. I hate when I don't know the words in different languages. When you don't have the like good starting point. And then we have planets in its fall, which would be Jupiter in Capricorn. You don't get a cookbook, essentially. There is no cookbook, and you have a few utensils, and like you're on MasterChef or something, and it's like, okay, everybody cook now. And you're like, I don't have the cookbook. You're like, you have to cook the meal now, though. And so it's a crisis moment. But crisis lends itself to creativity. So all the planets in its fall have to come up with how to cook the recipe in a way that is completely unconventional to still get the same results. What can also happen, though, is that accidentally you create something even better because you were put in this moment, because you were the underdog, because nobody was expecting you to be able to cook a good meal without even having the cookbook or the recipe. Which is sometimes what planets in exaltation can struggle with, because they get everything handed to them on a silver platter. But if you don't practice, it doesn't mean you can still cook a good meal. If you get handed down the best piano and you don't practice every day, somebody that's had a shitty piano and practice every day can overtake you. So I think this is a very good analogy that, you know, this is the circumstances which we're handed in. It's still up to us what we do with that. It's still up to us how we cook up the meal and what we do with it. So I don't know what exact point I wanted to make with this right now. But I hope this served as a good analogy just to understand planets a bit better. Or I guess the square, you know, that final square of Jupiter in Cancer squaring Saturn in Aries, which is happening this Sunday. This is happening by the end of this week. But we are still midweek right now with this full moon. But again, this full moon is leading up to that. So it is already in the air. It's definitely already felt. And it's a long story arc, you know, these Saturn, Jupiter, conjunctions, squares, trines, all of that are long story arcs in our lives. It all happened again, end of 2020 at the Aquarius parts of our chart. And now like it's slowly doing like a whole journey for these other parts in our charts. But the initial moment is important. So if you want to look back at what is the starting point of this journey, look back at late 2020, like December, like literally late 2020. I think it was almost New Year when this happened. What happened in your life? Because that's when the first initial conjunction happened at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Aquarius is the starting point. And yeah, we don't see results immediately. You know, that's the thing, especially also with the outer, slower moving planets. Things will not, like, there won't be a super strong, at least not for us. Globally, I think yes. Globally, I do think yes. Sometimes the ingresses can be super loud globally, especially with the outer planets. On a personal level, usually mostly only if you have aspects forming already from the outer planets, okay? Not for the inner planets, like Jupiter and Cancer. I think all of us are feeling this right now personally. So that's what I want to say. Long changes ahead, okay? This year is a shifting year. It's not a year where we are already there. It's a year of slowly shifting gears. And so many of the outer planets are still retrograding back into their former signs. Uranus is still going back into Taurus. Saturn is going back into Pisces. Neptune is going back into Pisces. So there's lots of back and forth still. There's still some unfinished things. We are heading into something new. We are getting glimpses, but we are not fully there yet. There's still some cleaning up to do. So that's what I have to say here. On Thursday, we don't have any significant transits going on. On Friday, we have the Sun in Gemini squaring the nodes at the bending of the nodes. This is, I feel like, there's something about this just reminds me of what has Jupiter done in our lives? What has Jupiter done in our lives since then? In the Gemini areas of our life? Because last time we had a Sun-Jupiter conjunction, so the Sun-Jupiter Cazimi was in Gemini, maybe like around a year ago. Give and take 1 month. Now, it's like, what happened? Like, what karmic, fated things have happened? And Gemini, depending on which house it rules, being at the bending of, like, because this is like a T-square, right? It just feels like there is something interesting that can happen. Like, it's hard to say things here without knowing someone's full birth chart, right? Because I can't fully go across all the houses right now. But if you know your chart, if you know which house Gemini rules and Pisces and Virgo rule, look at that. Look at these topics, because they will give you insight into what type of like changes are about to unfold. But I do think this is an interesting moment to really reflect back on the journey of Jupiter in Gemini, because it set the stage, and again it's setting the stage for Uranus in Gemini as well. So this is what I have to say here on Saturday. Also no significant transits in that way, but again, all building up to that Jupiter Saturn square. On Sunday, we also have Mars in Leo square Uranus in Taurus happening on Sunday. So Sunday is pretty spicy, to say the least, especially because Uranus is heading more and more into that ending degrees. We are not fully out of the I didn't want to say it like that. What am I trying to say is that Uranus is nearing the 29 degrees, but now we are still experiencing that. I feel like the wording wasn't good. Anyways, I will not cut this out. I'm just rolling with authentically trying to say things and maybe screwing up in the process. So, let me actually take a sip of water. First, you know, I wish I could just be this person that is so good at improv, and sometimes I am, but sometimes it's still hard. And I want to spare you of the time of looking at me while I'm here thinking 1 minute, what can I say? Which is why preparation is good. But in this case, there wasn't so crazy much preparation. Although I am always intuitively feeling the signs. Like, I'm always intuitively feeling what is in the air. And this most definitely also is seen in however I do. Like, even if I write my notes, it's all intuitive for the most part. But yeah, spicy weekend ahead for sure. You know, Mars Uranus squares always bring in tension. It always seems like this firecracker moment that can happen. I would not be surprised on a global level if there are. I mean, I don't want to get political here, and so like I'm just gonna say that political issues are bound, I think, to get into a very like boiling point when it comes to things. I could see it going in either direction, but there could, I don't know, there's just definitely conflict tension up in the air or in the waters, I guess, with things going on right now. I could see this as just like an overturning point. I can't tell you exactly for what, but just things. Uranus is expected, okay? So sometimes we don't know what the change will be, but I do think there's like a global change and shift coming to some regards, and people are here to fight for it. People are here to freaking fight for it. And you know, on a global level, that Saturn Jupiter square happened. Not square. Saturn Jupiter conjunction happened in Aquarius at 0 degrees, which is a big high marking point for like the whole pandemic era that was going on at that time. So, and you know, if we think of global matters, this was a starting point, and also a lot of the like Uranus when. Like 2021, when Saturn was in Aquarius squaring Uranus, but there was also, you know, like sometimes we had that T square with also Leo and all of that. There was a lot of political and social tension going on up in the air. And again, having both of these, having Mars square Uranus and also Jupiter square Saturn, I feel like this is a monumental shifting point for like global affairs and things. Again, I don't want to like go and make specific predictions because I don't think I'm the right person for doing that at all. But I do think it's just something we can watch out for. In our personal lives, it's probably also something that goes back to that time. So this is what I have for this week. Very interesting, exciting week ahead. Again, in a way, lots of good news with the benefics in such good positions, and that extremely benefic also full moon that is going on. At the same time, there's also lots of firecracker energy and tension up in the air. I think the best thing that I always remind myself and that I always like to tell people is, if you're going through something, keep going. Like if you're going through hell, keep going. The only way out is through. That's how this weekend kind of feels like. I don't think it's necessarily going to be so harsh just because Jupiter and Venus are doing a lot of good right now in the air. And that square to Saturn and Aries, which has a lot to do with taking back our power. I do feel like there's lots of good things around the corner of like being able to win things, like, and really taking back the power of the people. So we shall see where things are going. Again, I have my fingers crossed. So this is how we're ending this week. And yeah, I think then we are, let me just see, heading into what is happening. Yeah, Mars is shifting into Virgo the week after this. So definitely a new change ahead, and we are starting Cancer season. So this is kind of what we are then heading into. Maybe a bit of a milder week, but this week, yeah, a very, very interesting week. So this is what I have for you guys for the weekly overview, at least. Again, I do briefly also just still want to shout out the Gemini Decan's workshop that is happening this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central European Time. We are looking at the decans of the sign of Gemini, and after that we'll be looking at the decans of the sign of Cancer. So if you're interested in that, maybe you have lots of Gemini placements, or you're just interested to know astrology on a deeper level, this is perfect because we do example charts. We also talk about people's birth charts. It's really like hands-on, so you can walk away like having gained something. It's not just philosophical and intellectual. It's really about recognizing the patterns in people and in yourself. So if that's something you're curious about, sign up for the Decan's workshop. And if you can't make it live, we are also sending out the recordings. And you can also sign up for the whole year as well. And you will immediately also get the Aries and the Taurus recordings, so you're not missing out on anything. So it's just what I want to shout out here at the end. I would love to have you there. And yeah, stay connected with me on socials. All the links are down below. And I wish you all a lovely week ahead. And bye.